The year was 1995. Bill Clinton was president, and hip-hop's golden era was reaching a new zenith with groups far outside of New York City, like the Ghetto Boys and Outkast, taking the culture in exciting new directions. But they were far from the only ones coming from a new region with something to say. Enter the DMV hip-hop scene, when the DC metro area did experience a renaissance of its own, right around the corner from Howard University on U Street Northwest. This 4-block stretch of clubs and restaurants like State of the Union, Republic Gardens, and Bar None became the breeding ground and now time capsule of some of the most brilliant artists you've never heard. Until now.
Generation 2000 was one of several collectives that formed around this time. We're talking mid to late 90s. Focus, the nexus, if you will, was this cafe up in Georgetown, 26 and P Street,
right,
called It's Your Mug. Sister named Toni, Asante Lightfoot was the host.
And we all will be remembered warriors.
She ran it like a finely oiled machine. And it was church. It was a very reverent, holy place for poets to go. And there were a lot of poets who kind of created these collectives at the time. So Toni Asante had her group, and they were called the Modern Urban Griots, MUG, which kind of went with the mug. So they were kind of like the mug representatives for It's Your Mug. Black Rooster Collective, some brothers who were really respected. DJ Renegade, Kenny Carroll,
Brian Gilmore.
I mean, they wrote a poem, went back and rewrote the poem, went back and edited. You know what I mean? They were really dedicating themselves to the craft, and I wasn't in. I was very much off the top of my head. Whatever I'm in at the moment is what I'm meant to say, and then it's in the universe, and I'm moving on to the next line.
Got to mention 8-Rock, the 8-Rock cats too.
The It's Your Mug and 8-Rock were kind of out at the same time.
She allowed us to express ourselves in terms of rhyming and just throwing on music.
I love being black and proud and not a thug. I love representing at the place It's Your Mug.
It's just dope, and then after that, we didn't have nowhere else to go. We were on the street. We were in Georgetown.
A young poet from California dared to start a workshop in Southeast DC just to improve her skills and be around like-minded artists.
We ended up at 8-Rock Cultural Arts Center on Southeast DC because of DC poetry legend Kenneth Carroll. So I was telling Kenny about the problem, and Kenny was like one of my big brothers. Kenny was a mentor to me, and Kenny looked out like on some necks. And so Kenny went about the business of looking for a space for me to do it. I think there was literally 7 people, and we would rhyme until we were sweating. We put out the flyers to a few more people, and some other cats started to come. And then when that crew came, then here came, like a few months later, all these kids from Duke Ellington, School of the Arts came.
Duke Ellington was just a place that you can just grow as an artist.
I went there for a couple of years for visual arts. And, that's where I met a lot of like early DC hip hop, early golden era hip hop on the rise, people like Slim Cat, people like Black Indian, DJ RBI. I think it was Tony Blackman that invited me the first time. So I started at it was like a hip hop event at Howard University. I think she saw me freestyling or something. It was just like a vibe. And she was like, yo, you should come to this event.
Once that crew came, they brought more of their friends.
The Freestyle Union was really where all the people that rapped came, religiously on a Monday to just cipher out and be heard.
Freestyle Union was school. It was where you learn to be a better MC.
Young artists like John Moon and KOKAYI helped formulate the format and atmosphere around the workshop, which grew quickly from 20 to 40 artists at a time.
a hip-hop workshop dedicated to the elevation of the rhyme. What we do there is we worship the rhyme. We embrace the rhyme. The cypher is a sacred place. We trained together in that boot camp.
Yeah.
We were in the dojo with Sub-Z and Coconut.
Yeah.
We were in the dojo for 2 years straight without interruption.
I learned from all these MCs. Like I learned from especially from KOKAYI, Sub-Z, and Priest the most. Like I studied everything about them. I studied the way they moved, because like the way they would move, it would be how they would flow. You know what I mean? Like I studied all of it. I could tell you how Sub-Z with the shoulders.
Now we can disagree without being disagreeable, but if it comes to that, I'm seeing you with the authority of a traffic cop locking the boot on your vehicle. I mean, Mike.
It's like Priest with the
MCs, I run through them like jealousy, smooth like bad to the bone, like calcium deficiencies. Damn.
Yeah, and KOKAYI with the, because KOKAYI was like a saxophone or something.
You know, that's when I met a lot. That's when I met a lot of those people, and it was like really blown away. You know, but they welcomed me in. That was really where I would say that my freestyle that became more of a thing to me.
The cypher was unique because you had people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities.
I remember Philly. He brought me to the cypher.
Yes.
He was like, yo, you got to check this out. Like, you know, we the only Filipinos there. I was like, what?
Yes.
I was like, okay, let's go.
Walking up in there, staff, yo. So imagine what's going through my head, like dreadlocks and the staff, but probably a little sack on, who knows? And so you got to think. I'm probably thinking to myself like, yo, I'm about to be the most powerful in here. So then I heard everybody rap, and I'm like, oh, this was dope. I saw Sub-Z go to one leg and come back up on his ankle. I saw John Moon rap. I'm like, what the f is this? Ew.
Because it was a thing to be like 14 years old rapping with grown men.
Right.
And like to be like respected. Like, oh, nah, you killed it. He killed it, but then you killed it. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And I have not been in a community where there were that many dope MCs. There's the one or two, but I haven't been in a place where there's 30 of them. Except for in DC during that era.
U Street, the epicenter of DC, Maryland, and Virginia hip-hop, coalesced on a busy club-filled section of Northwest DC in the mid to late 90s.
It was a place you could go to with no plans, because it was a plan unto itself. You go to U Street, like just knowing like, all right, if I don't have a plan, let's say, there's a set at Mango's. Oh, there's a set at Bar None. Oh, there's somebody playing in State. Maybe, maybe not. It was really more like, yo, I'm gonna just go up in that area and something's gonna happen.
U Street was a very artistic street in DC.
Yes.
All the small cafes, and you would find the poets and the people freestyling.
Return to old school rules. We're breaking knowledge through the heads of fools, equipping warriors with tools. A sharper shining.
There was a lot of memories on U Street. I mean, to be honest.
That just thinking about all the friends we picked up along the way. Just, you know, seeing people come through, vibing with them, rhyming with them and everything.
Gotta understand, to the 9th degree, I burn in the retina so everybody can see.
It was just a perfect thing that could have been happening for us in one of the most perfect times in one of the most perfect places. You know, like U Street was a paradise in a lot of ways.
Definitely, man.
Just those wonderful warm nights when you're just standing out at the corner of 14th and U. The music is kind of, you know, thumping, coming out of state, and you can watch people coming in and out, but it's like they'll go in fresh, but they're coming out sweaty. You don't walk out of state the same way you walked in.
The reggae scene, there was still a punk scene.
It was just like a pulse, you know, and you have way more clubs open. Everybody was trying to just figure out, how are we going to do it? How do we get ciphers going? How do we get in the clubs? Who do we need to talk to perform? People were handing out flyers, you know. But of course, you know, you had these spots like State of the Union, which already had a particular legacy before hip hop. But now, because of like the kind of times are changing in a sense, like that became this like staple place.
I knew I could run into the Amphbns and figure out what was happening.
So there was a lot of classic memories at State of the Union. I remember like having performances there.
I did a nice little run at State of the Union for a while. Back to back with Sam Burns, man. Sam Burns was the DJ that came on right after me on Sundays. He came on after us and spun the house. Rest in peace to Sam Burns. Like, seriously, man.
It was an underground block, and then Republic opened up, and suddenly it was like, oh, the place to be seen, right? But there were always like, you know, finely dressed, high heel girls going into Republic Gardens and sort of disdainfully walking past State. And I could think of at least 10 occasions where the line's too long at Republic and they're outside. She would go home. I got dressed up. It's one of them. You overhear the whole conversation. Yo, you want to go in there? Wait, in there? Yeah. So they're like looking at State like this. And then, just like Patrick said, man, they go in looking fresh, boy. They come out with sopping, with a sheen of sweat. And then about a week later, you like look and it's like, that's a Lil. She came for Fashion Week 2 weeks ago. Now she's dressed down, ready to get busy. Come into State, listen to some good hip hop, go in the back, listen to some good house.
It was a wave, man. I mean, it was Black Broadway,
Right,
and then we just kind of reinvigorated that energy unknowingly. I think, like we didn't even know we were catching a spirit, but we did, and we created something that was really beautiful for that time.
I don't know what Black Broadway looked like back in the early 1900s, but I feel like it was the same energy.
If I could freeze any moment in time, good and the bad, it would be then. The energy was so raw, man.
It all started in Slim Cat's basement, and he called the aquarium.
It was just this really organic thing that evolved, that like birthplace and definitely birthplace at Duke Ellington for me personally.
Right.
But obviously everybody was having their own initial shoot off points that kind of coalesced into one.
Everyone just had a cool vibe, so we just hung out. I mean, that's how I was introduced. It was definitely the Freestyle Union.
We would come in here, freestyle, have ciphers, sharpen the skills up, do all kind of lyrical exercises. Real tight work.
Kaffa House, man, really really brought a lot of us together.
We were like friends.
Yeah, that's it. It was a brotherhood. It was a brotherhood for sure.
It was a brotherhood.
So like some people don't know, but like you said, I started the Amphbns like because like we had all these other crews. I was like, but my folks is dope. My folks is ill. I want to have my own crew. I mean, so it was like when I wrote it down, it was chemistry, mysticism, Joe Villa, Philly, Baking Soda, John Moon.
We were different.
Yeah.
We were unusual.
Let's say it started with that group, right? And then you all was out in the world and like meeting other MCs. And it's because of you all's energy, which was so like inviting, that more MCs would come in.
Because we kind of had every spectrum. We had every facet. And that's really what kept me there, was the fact that like it was a strong collective with incredible ideas of people that were not afraid to like authentically do their thing.
We were all part of Freestyle Union, pre-Amphbns. And actually they gave us that push to be Amphbns.
Truthfully, you guys just pretty much got us together and was like, let's just do our own thing, man. It's dope.
Nyala is historical.
The flow has got to a point where we are all hosting in the same night and no one's talking about it. We know who's behind us playing. We're aware of that, you know, and people are taking turns also. You know, you got a free transition thing going on. You're hosting, and sometimes I might jump in, Jamal might jump in, John might jump in, Philly would jump in.
Because that was the first time anybody heard rap in public.
You know, it was just a vibe. It was probably the most amazing vibe that I've ever seen.
We were able to come out of our bedrooms. We were able to come out of our basements. We were able to like not have to be like, you know, and trying to squeeze into some little cipher or whatever.
Right.
And able to do it on our own terms, in our own space. It was DIY, which is a huge component of like DC culture, from punk to hip hop to beyond that. DIY culture was like at its finest right then. We didn't have no records. We didn't have no, you know, we were recording our own little tapes, trying to scrounge up enough money to buy our equipment, you know, learning how to use speakers, putting on battles, all these, you know, great moments.
We had Slim Cat, Trevor Goodchild playing live beats. Like no one had that.
When we were in the early stages of Lifeline, we literally, you know, we were taking our turntables up there, sampling on the spot. You know, we had our drum sounds in there. We would take records and just be like, fuck it, we just gonna take whatever we can, whatever sound. You know, we would just come up with some chops, man. And the cats would just go in on freestyle.
Just the memories of that place of what we have created, and you know, using all our talents in one place. We got to learn how to host. We practice our songs. It was really dope.
As the years passed, those young people on U Street and those electric ciphers began to grow and change. These paths diverged far and wide in choice and circumstance, Toni Blackman becoming the first hip-hop ambassador for the State Department, Patrick of the Poem Cs holding his Dialect PG Poets events and becoming a director for nonprofit Words, Beats, and Life. Those younger members, however, who became the Amphbns Collective, were rallied again in 2020 by an idea. Honoring the dream of a fallen brother during this long journey, Jason Villaroman, the heart and soul of the Amphbns crew and one of the most pervasive and positive presences in the DMV hip-hop scene. From Zoom meetings during a pandemic that reunited old friends from as far as the Netherlands, the Amphbns decided to pool their resources and produce the visual for Breathe, a truly heartfelt and earnest song posthumously constructed by his crew to preserve their friend's love for life for all time.
Living, my spirit in this 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 practicing this addiction by living, working, regurgitating time spent on rent, ventilation. Other than what my spirit represent, I'm practically adjusted to believing that this bubble Troubled by society that's built hideously, maneuvering through this monopoly. I ask whatever happened to living, working, ventilation. Brothers mutter pigeons and scrubs in this new world pop dynasty. Honestly, others that continue to clutter the music that we create. They ask us of other things, which to me is procrastinating. I'm waiting for the day it would all come around, being at peace in the presentations of our sounds. Song, miracle, song, melody. I have been a miracle. I have been all I want to do is breathe, struggling to fit in this world that limits me, conditioned to the ways I cannot relate. Trying to be receptive to this world before we get erased. All I want to do is breathe, struggling to fit in this world that limits me, conditioned to the ways I cannot relate. Trying to be receptive to this world before we get erased. All I want to do is breathe. My spirit in this living. 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 My spirit in this